Hey there, I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm diving into something that I think has the power to shift the way you see the world. Books. But not just any books. We're talking about 4 specific books that have the potential to change your life, just like they've done for countless others, including myself. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Alistair, a book? Really? But hear me out. Books have this incredible ability to transform our thoughts, our actions, and even the way we relate to other people. A single page can spark a moment of realization that changes everything. And while I can sit here and talk about how important reading is for our intellectual growth, today I want to share 4 books that can actually help you grow in ways you might not expect. These are not your typical bestsellers or self-help gimmicks. No, these are books that will challenge your thinking, reshape your perspective, and ultimately help you live a richer, fuller life. And the best part? They're all grounded in real-life examples. So you won't just hear about lofty ideas. You'll see how they can be applied practically. Let's start with a book that's simple in its premise, but profound in its impact. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to handle the toughest situations with grace, while others falter? I'm sure we've all asked ourselves that at some point. I certainly have. Frankl was a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who discovered something deeply transformative during his time in concentration camps. This book isn't just about his experiences. It's about the discovery that no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in, we always have the ability to find meaning in our suffering. Now, you might be thinking, wait, how does that apply to me? Well, let me take you back to a few years ago when I found myself feeling stuck. I had a challenging period in my life, struggling with the usual things, personal doubts, feeling disconnected from my purpose, and quite honestly, just feeling like I was drifting. Sound familiar? It happens to the best of us. One day, I picked up Man's Search for Meaning on a whim. I'll admit, I wasn't expecting a life-altering experience. I just wanted a distraction. But what I found was a lesson that hit me like a ton of bricks. Frankl writes about how the most vital choice we have in life is how we respond to what happens to us. We can't control everything around us. Life will throw challenges at us. But the one thing we can control is the meaning we assign to those challenges. And that's incredibly empowering. Frankl's story wasn't just about surviving. It was about finding purpose, even in the face of unimaginable horrors. And that hit me hard. It made me realize that the struggles I was facing weren't meaningless. They were opportunities to grow, to learn, and to redefine what success even meant. It wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about finding meaning through it. I started shifting my mindset from focusing on the problem to asking, what can I learn from this? And that small change, it made all the difference. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by life's difficulties or caught in a cycle of negativity, Man's Search for Meaning is the book that will give you that mental and emotional shift you didn't even know you needed. It's a gentle reminder that no matter what's going on, we have the power to find purpose in our lives. Now, on to the second book I want to talk about. You may have heard of it before, and if you have, you probably know it as The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Now, let's be honest, we all have those habits, good or bad, that govern our lives. But here's the kicker. What if the habits we have are not as ingrained as we think they are? What if they can be changed, reshaped, or even completely reprogrammed? I was introduced to this book by a friend who had a pretty crazy transformation. You know, one of those, I used to be this way, and now I'm a completely different person, stories. And of course, like anyone, I was curious. What was his secret? Turns out, it wasn't some radical overhaul of his life. It was the simple, powerful practice of habit formation. Duhigg's book is a deep dive into how habits work. But it's not just about understanding them, it's about changing them. Have you ever tried to break a bad habit, only to find yourself falling right back into it? Or maybe you've been wanting to adopt a healthier routine, but haven't had much luck sticking with it. Trust me, I've been there too. What Duhigg explains in The Power of Habit is this: Habits are not just actions we repeat, they're patterns built into our brains. And the beauty of this realization is that once you understand how habits form, you can change them. For example, let's talk about a bad habit I struggled with: procrastination. Oh, I could talk all day about the times I put things off, convincing myself I'd get to them later. It wasn't just about laziness, though. It was about the routine I had formed around it. But Duhigg helped me realize that procrastination was a habit loop. The trigger, feeling overwhelmed; the routine, putting things off; and the reward, temporary relief from stress. Once I recognized the pattern, I could start to change the routine. I didn't need to be perfect, but I could chip away at the habit by inserting a new, more productive action when the urge to procrastinate arose. This book opened my eyes to the fact that habits, both good and bad, don't have to control us. We can control them. And the same goes for you. Whether you want to develop a habit of reading more, eating healthier, or getting up earlier in the morning, this book provides practical steps to rewire your brain for success. Now, I've got something a little different for you in the third book, The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. You know, we spend so much of our lives chasing success, right? We're taught that happiness will follow if we just work hard enough, accumulate enough wealth, or reach the right milestones. But what if I told you that the Dalai Lama challenges that notion? That, in fact, happiness doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from within. This was a tough one for me to swallow at first. I grew up in a culture that valued achievement and external validation. So the idea that happiness could be a choice was revolutionary to me. But let me tell you, after diving into The Art of Happiness, I began to see the truth in it. The Dalai Lama speaks about the importance of mental attitude and compassion. Happiness, he argues, is a byproduct of living with a peaceful mind and a heart that genuinely cares for others. I've had to learn this the hard way. You see, there was a time when I was so focused on my own goals that I didn't stop to reflect on the impact I had on others. And honestly, I wasn't truly happy. I felt this constant undercurrent of stress, like something was missing. It wasn't until I read this book that I realized I had been searching for happiness in all the wrong places. One of the most profound things I took away from The Art of Happiness was this idea that real happiness comes from cultivating a sense of inner peace and finding joy in the present moment, regardless of where we are in life or what we have. It's about aligning our thoughts with compassion, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. This shift in mindset transformed how I interacted with the world. It allowed me to let go of the pressures I had placed on myself and focus on living each day with intention. Happiness, the Dalai Lama teaches us, isn't a destination, it's a way of being. And when we learn to nurture it from within, it radiates outward, affecting everything we do. That's the beauty of The Art of Happiness. It doesn't tell you to work harder or accumulate more. It asks you to embrace the simplicity of joy, compassion, and presence. If you're constantly running after success but feeling empty along the way, this book will be a game changer. Now, we've already covered 3 books that can change your life. One about finding meaning in suffering, another about mastering habits, and one about unlocking true happiness. But this next book, this one is different. It's a book that will completely rewire how you think about success, creativity, and achieving the things you once thought were impossible. And that book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I know what you might be thinking. Wait, Alistair, you just talked about habits with the power of habit. And you're right. But hear me out. Atomic Habits isn't just about understanding habits. It's about building them in a way that sticks. And trust me, that distinction makes all the difference. Let me tell you a story. A while back, I was struggling to stay consistent with exercise. I'd start strong, maybe hit the gym for a week. But then life would get busy, and before I knew it, I was right back to square one. Sound familiar? Maybe for you, it's something else. Reading more, waking up earlier, learning a new skill. We all have those things we want to do, but for some reason, we just can't seem to make them a permanent part of our lives. That's where Atomic Habits changed the game for me. James Clear introduces this concept. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And when I read that line, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because think about it, how many times have we set a big goal for ourselves, only to fall short? It's not because we aren't capable, it's because we're focusing on the goal instead of the small daily habits that actually get us there. Take my exercise struggle, for example. My problem wasn't that I lacked motivation. It was that I was relying on motivation alone, instead of building a system that made exercising effortless. So, I applied one of the simplest, yet most powerful strategies from Atomic Habits, the 2-minute rule. Here's how it works. Instead of trying to commit to a full 30-minute workout every day, I told myself, just put on your workout shoes. That's it. That was my only goal. And once I did that, I thought, well, might as well do a 5-minute workout. And guess what? That 5 minutes turned into 10, then 20. And before I knew it, I had built the habit I had struggled with for years. See, the key to making habits stick isn't about making huge, life-altering changes overnight. It's about making tiny, consistent improvements that compound over time. It's about making habits so small, they're impossible to fail at. And once they become second nature, they naturally grow into something bigger. James Clear calls this habit stacking, pairing a new habit with something you already do. For example, if you want to start reading more, don't just tell yourself, I need to read for 30 minutes every night. Instead, link it to something you already do. Like, after I pour my morning coffee, I'll read 1 page, just one, no pressure. But here's the thing, 1 page often turns into 5, 5 turns into 10. And before you know it, reading has become part of your daily routine without you even realizing it. That's the magic of Atomic Habits. It takes the pressure off. It makes success inevitable by designing an environment that naturally pushes you toward the habits you want to form. And the best part, you can use this for anything. Better health, stronger relationships, financial growth, creative pursuits. The principles in this book are universal. So if you've ever felt stuck in the cycle of trying and failing to build better habits, Atomic Habits is the book that will finally help you break free. Now we've talked about meaning, habits, and happiness. But there's one more thing that ties all of this together, because, let's be real, what's the point of personal growth if we don't understand how to navigate the world around us? And that's where our final book comes in. The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now, let me say this up front. This book isn't for the faint of heart. It's not some feel-good motivational read. No, the 48 Laws of Power is a deep dive into human nature. It's about strategy, influence, and understanding the hidden rules that govern society. And whether we like it or not, power dynamics are everywhere. I'll never forget when I first read this book. I was young, ambitious, and a little too idealistic. I believed that success was purely about hard work and talent. But then I started noticing something. People who weren't necessarily the most talented or hardworking were climbing the ladder faster than others. And I wondered why. That's when I discovered the 48 Laws of Power. This book unravels the truth about how power works in the real world. And let me tell you, it's eye-opening. It explains why some people naturally command respect, while others get overlooked. Why some ideas take off, while others fade into obscurity. And while some might see this book as manipulative, I see it as educational. Because here's the reality. Whether you're in business, relationships, or just everyday interactions, power is at play. And understanding it doesn't mean you have to be ruthless. It means you're aware. One of the most important lessons I learned from this book is law number 1. Never outshine the master. Greene explains that if you make your boss, mentor, or anyone in a position of power feel insecure, you will be seen as a threat. I've seen this happen firsthand. I had a friend, brilliant guy, who unknowingly made his manager feel overshadowed. And what happened? He got pushed out. Not because he wasn't good at his job, but because he didn't understand the game being played. Another powerful law? Win through actions, never through argument. Green explains that in most cases, arguing won't change people's minds. Showing them through results will. And let me tell you, the moment I started applying this in my own life, everything shifted. Instead of debating or trying to prove a point through words alone, I focused on showing results. And you know what? It worked. But here's the thing. The 48 Laws of Power isn't about being manipulative. It's about being strategic. It's about understanding human nature so you can navigate the world wisely. And trust me, once you see these laws in action, you can't unsee them. So there you have it. 4 books that, if you truly absorb their lessons, will change your life. Man's Search for Meaning will give you resilience and purpose. The Power of Habit and Atomic Habits will rewire the way you think about personal growth. The Art of Happiness will teach you how to cultivate inner peace. And the 48 Laws of Power will show you how the world really works. Now, my question to you is this: which one are you picking up first? Or better yet, have you read any of these before? I'd love to hear how they impacted you. And hey, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got a lot more thought-provoking discussions ahead, and I can't wait to dive into them with you. You know, after reading these books, something really interesting happened. It wasn't just that I felt inspired, it was that I started seeing things differently. Like when I first read Man's Search for Meaning, I thought, wow, Viktor Frankl is incredible. But then, as days passed, I realized his lessons were showing up everywhere. I remember walking through a coffee shop one day and seeing 2 people working on their laptops. One looked energized, excited, like they were enjoying what they were doing. The other, tired, slouched over, staring at the screen like it had personally offended them. And it hit me. It wasn't about what they were doing. It was about why they were doing it. Frankl's whole philosophy is that when we have a purpose, when we have a reason to push forward, we can endure almost anything. And I couldn't help but wonder, was that first person working towards something meaningful? A dream? A goal that excited them? And was the second person just getting through the day, feeling trapped in work that meant nothing to them? That's the power of meaning. It changes how we experience everything. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. It's the same with Atomic Habits. After I read that book, I started noticing all the tiny subconscious habits that were shaping my life. Some good, some not so good. Like, I realized that every time I sat on the couch, I'd instinctively reach for my phone and start scrolling. I didn't mean to. It just happened. And that's when it hit me. My environment was shaping my habits without me even realizing it. So I thought, okay, what if I reverse engineer this? Instead of leaving my phone within reach, I started putting it in a drawer when I sat down. Instead of having junk food in the kitchen, I put a bowl of fruit on the counter. And you know what? It worked effortlessly. That's what's so genius about Atomic Habits. It teaches you how to design your habits instead of just relying on motivation, which, let's be honest, comes and goes like the weather. And then there's the 48 Laws of Power. Oh, this one's fun. Because once you read this book, you start seeing power dynamics everywhere. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses, and suddenly, the whole world looks different. I remember sitting in a meeting once, years ago, and there was this one guy, let's call him Mark. Mark was brilliant. He always had the best ideas, but he had a habit of correcting his boss in front of everyone. And I could see it. The way his boss's face would tense up, the way the energy in the room would shift. And sure enough, a few months later, Mark got passed over for a promotion. Not because he wasn't smart, not because he didn't work hard, but because he didn't understand the game. And that's exactly what the 48 Laws of Power teaches you. It's not about being manipulative. It's about being aware. It's about understanding how people think, how they react, and how to navigate situations strategically instead of just bulldozing through them. Because the truth is, whether we like it or not, power is always at play. In business, in friendships, in relationships, some people know the rules, some don't. And those who don't, well, they often end up wondering why things never seem to go their way. And you know what's funny? When you combine all these books, Man's Search for Meaning, Atomic Habits, The 48 Laws of Power, you start seeing a pattern. Frankl teaches you that meaning gives you strength. James Clear shows you how to build the right habits to get where you want to go. And Robert Greene? He teaches you how to play the game wisely so you don't get in your own way. But that brings me to the final book we talked about earlier, The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. Because here's the thing, you can have purpose, you can have discipline, you can even understand power, but if you don't have peace, if you don't have happiness, then what's the point? I remember a time in my life when I was doing everything right. I was working hard, I was achieving my goals, I was checking all the boxes, but I wasn't happy, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I read The Art of Happiness, and it completely changed how I saw things. Because the Dalai Lama has this way of cutting through all the noise and reminding you that happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you cultivate. It's not about waiting for things to be perfect. It's about learning to be content where you are, even while striving for more. One of the biggest lessons that stuck with me, the idea that suffering comes from attachment. Not just attachment to material things, but attachment to expectations, to the idea that life should be a certain way, that people should act a certain way, that we should always get what we want. But life doesn't work like that, does it? And the moment we let go of that need for everything to go our way, we actually become happier. I started applying this in small ways, like instead of getting frustrated when things didn't go according to plan, I'd pause and think, okay, what's the lesson here? Instead of clinging to the past or stressing about the future, I started practicing gratitude for right now. And I'll tell you something, when you start living that way, everything changes, because now, instead of waiting for happiness to arrive, you start creating it. And that's the real magic of these books. They don't just give you knowledge, they give you a new way of seeing the world, a way that helps you find meaning in hard times, build the right habits, navigate power wisely, and most importantly, find peace in the process. And that, my friends, is life-changing. So, what do you think? Have you read any of these books? Have they had an impact on you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe, because trust me, we've got a lot more deep, thought-provoking conversations ahead. You know, the funny thing about life-changing books is that they don't actually change your life. Not on their own, at least. They change the way you think, and that is what changes your life. Because once you see the world differently, you start making different choices. And different choices, well, that leads to a completely different future. But here's the thing, none of this has to be overwhelming. You don't need to wake up tomorrow and reinvent yourself. You don't need to read all 4 books in a week and overhaul your entire life. That's not how real change works. Real change happens in the smallest moments. It's the tiny shifts, catching yourself in a negative thought and choosing a different perspective, deciding to take one small action toward a goal instead of putting it off, noticing when power dynamics are at play, and responding with awareness instead of reacting emotionally. It's about those little daily choices that seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they shape everything. Think about it. What if, starting today, you just picked one idea from all of this? Just one. Maybe you start applying what Viktor Frankl taught us and look for meaning in whatever challenges you're facing. Maybe you take one tip from Atomic Habits and change something small in your environment to make a good habit easier. Maybe you reflect on the 48 Laws of Power and start noticing the way influence plays out in your daily life. Or maybe you take a lesson from the Dalai Lama and let go of one expectation that's been stealing your happiness. That's it. Just one small thing. Because here's what I know for sure. When you start making these tiny shifts, everything else starts to fall into place. You won't even realize it at first, but one day, you'll look back and see how far you've come, and it'll feel like magic. And that's what I want for you. Not just to watch this video and think, oh, that was interesting. I want you to actually feel the difference in your life. So if you made it this far, let's do something fun. Drop a comment below and tell me, which one of these books are you most excited to read? Or, if you've read any of them before, tell me which lesson stuck with you the most. I'd love to hear from you. And hey, if this resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you're not subscribed yet, well, now's the perfect time. We've got so many more eye-opening, mind-expanding conversations ahead, and I'd love for you to be part of them. So until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, stay curious.